Got a problem? You need a hack. Hacks are everywhere. You just need to see them. Need to hide your money at the beach? Stuff it in a chapstick tube. Too cheap to buy a house for your cat? Stretch a t-shirt over a cardboard box. Stinky shoes? Put a tea bag in it. Need to make your relationship better? Try relationship hacks. Well, good morning, everybody online at the Fire Hall up in Churchill, wherever you are. It's so great to be able to worship together again today, and everybody here at the factory. I was reminded of another hack that I use all the time. I don't know if you use this one. Pam cooking spray on the shoes right before you come to church. And you just polish it. It shines them up like crazy. So if when you're walking past me, I smell a little bit like French fries, you'll understand why. But no worries. Hey, it's so great that you're here today. I want to tell you a story about a guy named Jack Harris. Jack Harris, back in 1958, was a film distributor. But he wanted to be so much more than that. But he was frustrated because he couldn't seem to get further into the film industry. He wanted to actually be a film producer. But he had a problem. He didn't have a studio. He didn't have any actors, he didn't have a script, he didn't have any cameras, he didn't have any money. And so he wasn't able to advance in his goal. However, he heard about this little studio called Valley Forge. And Valley Forge was a Christian studio that had made about 250 cheap little shows. And so he knew somebody there, so he approached Valley Forge and he said, listen, you guys want to advance the Word of God in the world, and I want to make a movie. I don't have a studio or cameras or any of that stuff, but you guys do. And so how about we make a movie together, and you get a bunch of money to advance the Word of God, and I get to make a movie. And they said, okay, let's try this. So they went into the movie-making business together. Now, Jack Harris wanted to make a sci-fi horror movie. So Valley Forge hired two pastors to write the script. So they write the script, and they come together. And 1958, they hire this unknown actor named Steve McQueen for $2,500. They get together for 31 days, and they shoot this low-budget $110,000 movie. And 9 months later, the movie hits the theaters, and it becomes a cult classic, making $4 million back in the late 1950s. And if you were going to the theater those days, this is what would be terrifying you.
Dave, Doc Hallen's been killed.
Doc Hallen, what happened?
It's over at his place. You gotta come now.
Now, wait a minute, Steve. Tell us what happened.
Well, I'm trying to tell you. Now, this thing had killed the doc.
Well, what was it?
Stop with it, kid. But it's kind of like a mass that keeps getting bigger and bigger.
It's indestructible. It's indescribable. Nothing can stop it.
This town is in danger.
How can it be stopped? Mob hysteria sweeps one city. Before long, the nation, and then the world could fall before the blood-curdling threat of the Blob.
Starring Steve McQueen and a cast of exciting young people.
Absolutely terrifying. I love that. It was basically an overgrown beanbag chair, gelatin, just kind of taking over the world. But, you know, I think of our lives these days, and I think for many of us, we kind of feel like we have a blob in our life. It's just consuming, it's rolling, it's sort of undefined, but it just sort of oozes in, and it takes over our lives. It takes over every aspect of our lives. It's sort of a mass of our responsibilities and our opportunities and our obligations and the things we need to do, our tasks and chores and challenges, the things we want in life, the things we have in life, the things that are broken that need to be fixed in life, the things in life that we no longer want, and they just all sort of ooze together and take over our lives. And so we become very overwhelmed. Now, I have a simple hack to fight the blobbiness of life, and I call this the to not do list. And if you've been around for a while, you know that I love to-do lists, and I have lots of different to-do lists. But my to-do lists are sort of like the blob. they just keep growing and growing and growing and growing and taking over more of my life. So I use the to not do list to try and focus myself. Now, the to not do list is actually inspired by one of the world's most famous to not do lists. You've probably heard of it before. It goes like this: do not covet, do not lie, do not steal, do not commit adultery, do not murder. The 10 Commandments. Then God sneaks two do's in there. Do honor your mother and father. Do respect the Sabbath. And then back to the do nots. Do not misuse God's name. Do not make idols, and do not worship any God other than Jehovah. The to not do list actually helps us to focus our energies. It helps to kind of focus our to keep our lives from becoming overwhelmed by the blob. So I've got a personal to not do list, and my to not do list only has 6 items on it. Here it is. I'll share it with you. Do not eat dessert or chips. Lately, I love dessert and I love chips. And so for me, I have to put that on the list. I'm not saying that should be on your list. I'm just saying that these days, that's on my list. Do not skip morning exercises. I have a routine I do every morning. This helps me to stay focused. Do not look past people when in conversation. I have this terrible habit of seeing everything in my periphery, and it catches my attention. And so when I'm talking to somebody, I'm looking all over the place. So I have to remind myself not to do that, but to stay focused on the person I'm talking to. Do not bring my phone into the bedroom. Here's another one. Do not reference our church size when meeting somebody. It's a habit of us pastors, especially if you're pastoring a little bit of a larger church, to drop the size of the church. And I need to remind myself not to do that in conversation. And then lastly, do not coast through life. My to-do list has about 120 items on it. But my to-not-do list only has 6 items on it. And so today what we want to do as we wrap up this relationship hack series is I want to roll out 4 relationship to not do's. And instead of rolling out 120 things that you could do in a relationship, we're going to just focus on 4 things not to do. Now, before we get there, though, we've been having some time just to hear from everyday Riverwooders and some of the relationship hacks that they've been experiencing. So here is Tim and his son Simon with a relationship hack that they've discovered.
Hi, my name is Tim Webster, and my family and I, given the choice, attend the Factory 11:15 a.m. service. I served as the drama ministry director from 1999 to 2011. I currently serve on the production team as a service director and also on the prayer team. So I'd like to introduce you to a relationship hack I call reflection. I could just tell you how to do it, but I think you'll be better able to implement it if I tell you why it works and show you how. So to get into it, I liked comic books and superheroes before they were cool. I don't know, does that make me like a geek hipster or a geekster? Whatever. But if you're on some of the same pages as me, you'll understand what I mean when I say conflict is like Thanos. It is inevitable. Conflict in any relationship is inevitable. Now, some people are avoiders, and they eschew conflict at any cost. And some of us are indulgers who will engage at any cost. Neither of these extremes is particularly healthy, but I've come to learn that the biblical response is to engage without concern for winning or losing. In fact, if that's what you're concerned about, you have in fact already lost. Christ followers, however, have a duty, an obligation, maybe even a calling to engage, because well-managed, healthy conflicts build community, whereas we all know that poorly managed conflicts tear it down. So how do we move from poorly managed conflicts to well-managed conflicts? Well, I've got a whole workshop I could give you on this, but that's not what we're doing today right now. The first step is voluntary participation, opt-in. If the other person isn't willing to engage with you, you have nothing. You can't go anywhere. So reflection is the key that unlocks the door to engagement. I learned this technique at the Global Leadership Summit we had here in 2019 from master negotiator Chris Voss. Reduced to its simplest terms, reflection is this: when, not if, conflict arises with someone, you reflect their viewpoint back to them. Now, it's key here that you realize it doesn't mean that you agree with them. It just means that you're listening. And you're listening in particular for 2 words. That's right. When you hear "that's right," that's a signal that the other person feels heard, that you understand their perspective. And the research bears that out. It tells us that you can't even begin to change someone's mind unless they believe that you are their friend. So to illustrate with a practical application, I'd like to introduce you to my son, Zyman. Oh. Now, as we raised him, I really did my best to indoctrinate him with all my favorite fandoms, but his mind and his opinions are his own. For example,
I think 7, 8, and 9 within the Star Wars franchise are the worst movies.
Okay, now I've got all kinds of feelings about that because I think number 8 was one of the best top 5 Star Wars films. But if I reinforce my position and I come at him with facts and opinions and try to overwhelm him, we can't have a healthy conflict. That's just an argument. So reflection works. Here are some magic words that I use to start unlocking reflection. And I say, can you help me understand why you think those particular 3 movies are the worst installments in the franchise?
Well, they were just copies of 4, 5, and 6. It could have been good, but they went about it wrong.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, you don't feel that 7, 8, and 9 were original, that they were just copies and not particularly good copies. Is that right?
They didn't have the world building of 4, 5, 6, or even 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, you think that if those films had spent more time showing more worlds and building more structure in the franchise, that you might appreciate them more. Is that right?
That's right.
So that's reflection. He said, that's right. I don't agree with them. I still don't agree with them. And hopefully we'll have a lot more discussions about this in the future. But next time conflict arises in your relationship, and maybe it's not something innocuous as the Star Wars franchise, maybe it's a little more important, take a moment to think. Are you the defensive wall, or are you the reflective mirror?
What a brilliant hack. Reflection. Looking for that's right in that argument. I love it. Well, we're going to go on to learning 4 things to not do in relationship. Number 1, stop planning what you're going to say while pretending to listen. We do it. We're thinking about what we're going to say while we're pretending to actually listen to the other person. In James chapter 1, verse 19, it says this, "Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry." Now, you've heard that before. It's almost a cliche. We know that passage of Scripture. We just don't live it out. We're so quick to react. We're so quick to become emotional. We're so quick with our responses. We're so quick to speak and even interrupt somebody else, and we're very, very slow to listen. And yet God calls us to reverse and engage differently. In fact, in Proverbs, I love this. In Proverbs chapter 18, verse 13, it says this, "It's stupid and embarrassing to give an answer before you listen." Talk about blunt. It's stupid and embarrassing to give your answer, to be thinking about your answer before you actually listen to the other person. So how do we get better at this? This whole hack series is all about the practicality of relationship. So how do we get better at listening? Well, I want to give you a couple of really practical hacks. The first one is called WAIT, W-A-I-T, WAIT. Are you ready for it? Here's what WAIT stands for. Why am I talking? In the middle of your conversation, you ask yourself the question, why am I talking right now? What is my motivation? Now, you have to be very disciplined at this, but if you can remember to do this, it's a brilliant hack. When you're in the middle of a conversation, you're in the middle of a fight, you're in the middle of making your point or helping somebody else to think the way you're thinking, you bring out this hack. Wait, why am I talking right now? And it's a motivation checker. Am I talking because I want to brag a little bit and I want them to think well of me? Am I talking right now because I'm afraid that they might ask me a question, so if I control the conversation and I keep talking, I'll be in control, they won't ask me a question? Am I talking right now because I need to convince that person to think like I'm thinking? Am I talking right now because I've never learned to ask really good questions and listen to the answer? Am I talking right now because I believe I'm the most important person in the room? Or am I talking right now because I want to get a point across, but then I'm going to quickly stop talking and I'm going to let them respond and I am going to listen to what they are saying? This is great. The next time you're in a conversation, if you can discipline yourself to ask yourself this question, wait, why am I talking right now? It's a game changer. Here's a second practical hack for listening. It's better to be interested than interesting. It's better to be interested than interesting. Whether you're meeting somebody for the first time, or you're in the midst of a conflict with somebody, or you're picking your kid up from school, or you're sitting around the dinner table, it's far better to be interested than interesting. Because interested people are curious people, and they ask really good questions. Here's the reality. The people you are in relationship with, they're like an iceberg. You see about 10%, you know about 10% of who they are, but the best parts of them, the most complex parts of them, the dreams and the aspirations and the desires and the hopes and the perspectives and all of these preferences, they're the 90% below the surface. And it's your job in that relationship to dig down and to discover what's below the surface. So a couple of years ago, Carolyn and I went on a romantic retreat to a cabin. And Carolyn decided to kind of prepare and spice it up a little bit. So she brought this page of questions that we were going to play a little game while we were at this cabin. And she brought it out and she said, here's how this game works. I'm going to ask a question and then you're going to answer it from your perspective and I'm going to answer it from my perspective on a piece of paper. And then we're also going to answer that question for how we think the other person's going to answer. And she explained this game to me and I thought, that's the dumbest game I've ever heard. Like, that is such a dumb game. We've been married 30 years. We're extremely intimate with one another. We know everything there is to know about each other. But I thought I'll play along. Got nothing else to do out of this cabin, so I played along. And so we played this game. What is something that makes you feel sad these days? What's your favorite magazine? If you were a superhero, what power would you have? What's your first childhood memory? What's your favorite movie? If you were on a deserted island with 3 items, what 3 items would you take with you? If you had a warning label, what would it say? What celebrity would you love to sit down and have a Starbucks coffee with? And so on and so on and so on. Well, we played this little game, and by the time we were done comparing answers, we wondered if we knew each other at all. I mean, we got so many answers wrong after 30 years of being married and having a good marriage. We got so many answers wrong. It just teaches us that there is so much more to a person than what you see or you know. And you need to dig down and you need to be more interested than interesting. You need to be curious. Number 1, stop planning what you're going to say while pretending to listen. Use the wait hack. Why am I talking right now? Use the be more interested than interesting hack. Now here's number 2 to keep off the list. Stop any lies or pretense. Stop any lies or pretense. The Apostle Paul in Ephesians 4, chapter 20, or verse 25 says this, no more lies, no more pretense. Tell the truth. In Christ's body, we're all connected to each other. When you lie to others, you end up lying to yourself. In 2021, PhD Timothy Levine of University of Alabama released a study on deception. And so he had studied 630 people over a 90-day period. And he racked up and clocked an amazing 116,000 lies from these 630 people. That's about 185 lies per person over the 90 days. Now, as you might guess, the lies were not evenly distributed. 1% lied 15 times a day, 6% lied 6 times a day, 18% lied 3 to 5 times a day, and the vast majority, 75%, lied quite little, 0 to 2 times a day. But it was interesting because only 2 people in the entire study actually said that they hadn't lied over this 90 days. And on average, every person in the study, on average, lied 2.03 times a day. And yet, Paul says, no more lies. Don't be telling 2 lies a day. Don't be telling 14 lies a week. No more lies, no pretense. Tell each other the truth. So, is this something that you need to add to your to-not-do list? Is this something that you need to be working on? Now, my guess is that you're not fudging the truth when it comes to, somebody asking you, where were you? Or who were you with? Or what did you spend that money on? My guess is you're probably telling the truth there. But I wonder if you're telling the truth in everything. I wonder if you're telling the truth in how you come across. I wonder if you cause people to think that maybe you're doing a little better than you really are. Or you project to other people something that you're not. Let me give you a couple of really practical relationship hacks when it comes to being better at truth-telling and truth-living. I love this first one, the 3-day rule. The 3-day rule is very, very simple. All it means is that if somebody says something to offend you, if you have an experience where you're bothered, if you are in some sort of situation that stirs your heart and it's bothering you, if it's still there 3 days later, you need to deal with it. You need to talk about it. Now, often somebody will say something that offends us, and a day later you don't even remember it. You don't even care about it. But for many of us, we can tell the hurts that we've had or the things that somebody has said. We can recite those things like they were 3 days ago, but they were actually 3 months ago, or they were 3 years ago, or they were 13 years ago. And yet we tell them and we feel them like they were just a couple of days ago. And the rule says that if it's still bothering you 3 days later, you need to deal with it. You need to keep short accounts. You can't keep carrying it with you. There's a life cycle to these things. So the offense happens, and then you're bothered, and then you're supposed to be dealing with it, and then you come to forgiveness and you get set free. But when you don't deal with it and you hold it inside, you end up short-circuiting this journey towards freedom and forgiveness. And what ends up happening is your life and that relationship becomes a magnet for animosity and misunderstanding and fights and bitterness and a falling out and avoidance and withholding and with mistrust. Now, admittedly, it's far easier to tell a lie. Oh, I'm doing good. Everything's fine. It's far easier not to delve into it and actually deal with it. But the problem is when you do that, you are actively sabotaging your relationship. If you're carrying these things, the 3-day offenses, and you're carrying them beyond the 3 days, you're actually sabotaging the best parts of that relationship. So practice the 3-day rule. Here's a second hack that will help us to stop lying or this pretense. I call it unzipping the soul. Now, I don't know if I invented this or I picked it up somewhere. I can't remember. All I know is that I use it often. I use it with my staff. I use it with my family. I use it with Carolyn. I often will be heard saying, I'm just going to unzip my soul right now. And the reason I do that is because if I'm in a situation where I'm not quite sure how the other person is going to respond, or I'm not quite sure what kind of reaction I'm going to get, or I'm feeling a little insecure about what I'm going to talk about, or I know this is going to be very vulnerable, or I just need to invite more kindness and grace into the conversation, I'll often be heard saying, would you mind if I just sort of unzip my soul a bit here? Would you mind if I unzip my soul because there's something you need to know? I felt hurt by that thing you said. Now, I don't think you intended to hurt me, but I got to let you know it cut. And I'm feeling a little wounded. And I just need you to know that I'm struggling a little bit with that. Do you mind if I unzip my soul a little bit? Because I need to tell you that I'm really struggling right now. That thing that happened to me the other day, it really rocked my confidence. It really stirred up all sorts of fear inside of me. And I just don't want to walk through this alone, so can we walk through this together, even though it's kind of weird and I'm being vulnerable with you? This little phrase, can I unzip my soul? It's such a great phrase, and for us guys especially, it's a great tool to be able to open up our lives and to be more honest. God calls us to be people that not only speak no lies, but live no lies, that live no pretense. And if you're going to add anything to the to not do list, I would suggest that number one, stop planning what you're going to say and pretending to listen. Number two, stop any lies or pretense. And number three, stop being so predictable, will you? Some of you are so ridiculously predictable in your relationships. In the Old Testament, 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 11, chapter 3, verse 11 says, let me get to it. There it is. It says this, God said to Samuel, listen carefully. I'm getting ready to do something in Israel that is going to shake everything up and get their attention. Shake everyone up and get their attention. It will cause everyone's ears to tingle. This is so great. God loves in relationship to keep things unpredictable, to keep things fresh, to keep them unexpected. You know, last week was one of my son-in-law's birthdays. And so my daughter, Carly, took Cole, her husband, to Vancouver. They got this cheap flight to Vancouver, and he knew about that part. And they land in Vancouver early in the morning, and so she takes him out for breakfast. And they're having a wonderful breakfast. He's not sure what's coming next. And then she looks at her phone and says, oh, our Uber's here. And so they go outside and they jump in the Uber. Now, later on, Cole will tell us that he was sort of a little bit worried. First of all, the Uber ride was really long, and he was wondering, how much is this going to cost us? Like, this is a long ride. And secondly, the Uber driver wasn't very friendly. He was a little bit too over COVID conscious. He had his hoodie up, he had a mask on, and he was playing this Middle Eastern music, and he just wasn't talking. He wasn't very friendly, and Cole didn't think too much of it at the time, but later on he kind of reflected on it. Well, this was a great moment of surprise. In fact, here's what it looked like.
Okay, here. Here's your note.
What?
Do you know who this is? You take your mask down now.
What? What? I forced you to listen to this. What is going on?
Who knew a guy could screech so loud? What? I mean, and his mouth open like a Muppet there. I love it. I mean, he was so genuinely shocked. So here's what's going on. Evan, who is a Riverwooder, who works for Boeing and was transferred to Seattle, he drives up to Vancouver and he becomes the Uber driver. Carly does not have Uber on her phone. Carly has never booked an Uber ride and probably wouldn't know how. There was no Uber sticker on it, but Cole didn't notice any of that. And this went on to be a weekend of touring the airport, the airplane factory, going golfing, going to some of Cole's favorite things, the Starbucks headquarters and all this sort of stuff. And I just find it so inspiring that it was so unpredictable and it caught him off guard so much. Now, in order to be unpredictable, you don't have to have a plane ticket and lots of money. There are so many ways that you can be unpredictable in your relationship right now. For instance, middle of your day, when your spouse or a friend is expecting you to be forgetting about them, stop what you're doing, interrupt what you're doing, and send them a text. Just send them a text. Completely out of the blue. I mean, it's a great way to surprise somebody. Interrupt your preference of what movie you want to watch and actually defer to them and say, no, we're going to watch your movie tonight. It'll shock them. Interrupt your busyness and actually write an old school note of some sort on paper, whether it be a sticky that they'll find someplace or a longer note. If your predictable routine is that the other person cooks and does dishes for you, Come home early and have the meal ready for them. I mean, just blow them away. If your usual routine is to demand that you sit down and watch your game and have your drink, guys, you're not going to like this. But turn the game off and light a candle and bring out those intentionality questions that we talked about last week, or this game that Carolyn had, these questions game, and actually spend the time, blow their socks off, just spending the time in conversation. There's so many ways to get out of your routine. It is far easier to settle into a routine. It's far easier to create these deep ruts and these boring habits, but you've heard me say it so many times. A rut is just a grave with the ends kicked out of it. In other words, relationships get into these ruts, and ruts are where relationships go to die. But you can re-spark a relationship by surprise, by not being predictable. Okay, last one. Here we go. Last to not do on the list. Number 4, stop the quiet quitting. Do you remember what was happening about 2 years ago in our world? In the marketplace and in the world was this thing called the Great Resignation. Millions upon millions upon millions of people were just quitting their jobs. And marketplace specialists and analysts and sociologists were really looking at this. It was very interesting. Well, today we're not talking about the Great Resignation, but marketplace specialists and analysts and sociologists are talking about something else. And that something else that's happening in society these days, they've given it a name. Quiet quitting. There's so many people who are just simply quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is where people don't actually quit their jobs, but they just check out. So they go to work, but they don't spend a minute more or put an ounce more energy in than they absolutely need to. The minimum is what they try and get away with. They're sort of silently on strike. They go to work, but they invest as little energy or effort into that job, and it's like they've quit, but they continue to sit at their desk and continue to collect a paycheck. Well, here's the deal. Quiet quitting is not something that just happens in the workplace. Quiet quitting, if you haven't noticed, has come to church. All sorts of people have quietly quit their church, not just at Riverwood, North America wide. Pastors and church analysts are talking about this. 35% of pre-COVID churchgoers are just gone. Nobody knows where they went. They've just quit. Another large percentage of people have quit in other ways. They've quit showing up. They've quit giving, unless they really have to or they're compelled by a special project. They've quit praying. They've quit reading their Bibles. They've quit serving. They've quit connecting in small groups and charging that next hill of faith. Now, on the one hand, this is totally understandable. I mean, after what we've all been through over these last 3 years, people are tired. People are worn down and depleted and beat up from the pandemic. So many people's emotions have become kind of zombie-like. Like they're sort of seared by all the trauma and the craziness that's been going on in our world. And so it makes sense in many ways. In church world, we've got these volunteers that have continued to hang on, but because there's only half the volunteers that we had before, these volunteers are doing double duty, and they're staying longer, and they're working harder and have twice the responsibility, and so now they feel like quitting. To put it bluntly, the world's a mess. And it's no wonder it makes people wanting to quietly quit. They want to quietly quit their work. People are quietly quitting their church and their faith. They're quietly quitting serving. They're quietly quitting giving. And they're quietly quitting their relationships. And I want to challenge you to not quit. Don't check out. Don't just adopt the vibe of the culture around you. Don't quietly quit. Habakkuk was a prophet who was going through a pandemic-sized crisis. Actually, it was more like a Ukraine-sized crisis because there was this other nation, Babylon, that was threatening to invade where Habakkuk was, and not only invade, but absolutely total destruction of Israel. And Habakkuk, if anybody had a reason to quit, Habakkuk had a reason to quit. He has so much opposition coming against him. But I want you to listen to his rally cry that says, I will not quit. Listen to this. He says, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the oil of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stall. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. Everything was going wrong for Habakkuk. And the future looks so incredibly bleak. If anybody had a reason to quit, either quietly or loudly, it was Habakkuk. And yet he said, no, I will not quit. I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to keep this going. I refuse to quit. Now, are there times when we should actually quit? Are there times when we should quit a job? Or quit a volunteer role at church? Or quit a small group? Or quit a church? Or quit a relationship? Absolutely. Absolutely, there are times like that. But that's not what we're talking about. Quiet quitters are different than that. Quiet quitters have emotionally become unattached. Quiet quitters have emotionally drifted. Quiet quitters have given up on the future, and they're just coasting and putting the minimal amount into the relationship. A group of scientists named Barry, Lawrence, and Langer published their findings about relationship disengagement. And they were studying couples, romantic couples, and their disengagement. And they said, here are the 6 signs that we discovered will indicate that you have emotionally disengaged or you are quietly quitting. There's a lack of physical affection. They're no longer holding hands. They're no longer putting their arms around each other. They're no longer cuddling for the movie. There's a lack of attention towards a partner. They avoid asking and answering questions. We've talked so much about the key to asking and answering really good questions. Mentally checking out when they're with their partner, not wanting to deal with their partner, and spending as little time together with their partner as possible. So it would just sort of make sense that if you want to advance a relationship, you do the opposite of these things. And here would be the opposite of some of those in a romantic relationship. Increase the physical touch and affection. Start holding hands again. Start putting your arm around each other again. Start cuddling for the movie or the game and start touching again. Increase focused attention on your partner. Ask and answer lots of questions. Become so curious and so good at asking questions. And spend more time creating connection and meaningful moments. Church, I got to tell you, it seems like everywhere around us is challenging these days. It just feels like life is difficult and uncertain. And so if you're in a relationship that's struggling, you need to know that totally makes sense and you are not alone. But there are creative solutions using everyday items that lay right around us to improving those relationships. And one of them is the to not do list. And I would love for you to walk away with this. Number 1, stop planning what you're going to say while pretending to listen. Could you use the wait? Why am I talking right now? To check your own motivation. Could you use the be more interested than trying to be interesting hack? Number 2, stop any lies or pretense. Use the 3-day rule. Use the unzip my soul technique. Number 3, stop being so predictable. Interrupt your own preferences to surprise somebody, to catch them off guard, to create a didn't see that coming moment. Number 4, stop quietly quitting and intentionally re-engage in the relationship. Refuse to coast and refuse to drift. And maybe, if you've never started a relationship with God, maybe that's where you need to start in this whole relationship thing. If you've never entered into a relationship with Jesus Christ, you need to know that this is probably the first relationship that you really need to work on reigniting. And you need to know that Jesus loves you so much. God loves you so much. In fact, if you dig into it a little bit, you'll find that Jesus Christ actually gave his life to have a relationship with you. to take care of the sin and the death problem in our world. And so if you do not know Jesus Christ personally, we have a prayer team, we have pastors, we have people all over the place that would love to share with you what that even means and maybe introduce you to Jesus Christ for the first time. Now, many of us have a relationship with Jesus, but we're quietly quitting. We've just sort of started to drift. We've taken on the ethos of the culture, and we're just sort of coasting aimlessly. And maybe it's time for you to reignite that relationship. You know, I believe that God is saying to so many of us today that are drifting and are quietly quitting, snap out of it. Snap out of it. I got so much good I want to do in your life, but I can't do it if you're quietly quitting on me. So let's get this going again. Come on. And I don't know what that means for you. I don't know if that means you need to reignite your devotional time. Maybe you need to start the chapter a day reading again as we head towards the end of our chapter a day challenge. Maybe you need to start serving again. Serving is incredible because God's power flows through you and uses your giftedness and engages with other people to make a difference in this world when you serve. Maybe you need to start giving again, or maybe for the very first time. Maybe you need to get baptized and you know it. And we have actually a baptism class that's happening this Wednesday. Carolyn's going to be teaching it, getting ready for baptism in the next few weeks, and we're so excited about that. But whatever it is, whatever your next move with God is, or your next move with somebody around you that you're in relationship with, I challenge you. Make the move. Actually put some action into it. Don't just be intentional. Actually make the leap. Get creative. You can improve that relationship. It'll be awesome. Would you stand with me right now and let's respond and worship together?